everybody, and welcome to Vintage Mego, where we explore the golden age of what I call the world's greatest toy company, Mego. This week, we're going to talk about the Fab Four. No, not that Fab Four. Not these guys either. I'm talking about Bruce, Peter, Clark, and of course Dick. The Mego Secret Identity outfits, one of the hardest, if not the most challenging sets to collect in the world's greatest superhero pantheon. The words Holy Grail get thrown around for these, like any good toy whose demand outweighs its supply. It's also a series of figures that many of us grew up blissfully unaware of. So, what are they and why are they so rare? Well, let's tackle that with what I always like to call the backstory. The year is 1974, and fledgling toy company Mego is just climbing that roller coaster that is success after 1973 saw the company have its first bona fide sensation in licensing the comics characters from both DC and Marvel, merchandising them under the umbrella of the world's greatest superheroes. And all of a sudden, Mego was a household name. 74 was an incredible year for the growth of Mego and the superheroes brand in particular. I've covered the 74 catalog in a video that I'll link here because I think it gives a bigger overview than I'm going to give you right now. One of the relationships that Mego had developed was with department store chain Montgomery Ward's, or in some regions just simply called Ward's. Mego had been making catalog exclusives for Ward's for some time. In the Action Jackson line, they created a lower cost figure called Amigo. For their Fighting Yank line, they created characters like Yankee Bravo and Ombre. Heck, even Mego would make stuff for Ward's based on other people's toy lines, such as Dr. Chrome Dome, the Bionic Villain, who we've covered before, and outfits for like the Bionic Woman and Evel Knievel figures. You wouldn't know these were Mego. They would just be on the page. You would only get them and then see the Mego label inside the clothes. So Ward's was giving the world's greatest superheroes a full page for the 1974 wish book. And as usual, they wanted an exclusive. They wanted it at a lower price point. A deal and an exclusive is a lot easier to do when you own the property, like with Action Jackson or Fighting Yank. You cut some corners. Well, what do you do with licensed goods where you have to pay someone? Well, the decision was made to make the sets outfits, not exclusive figures, but just simply outfits, meaning these were more like accessory sets for your Mego World's Greatest Superheroes. They weren't. The concept was you would use these with your superhero. You would pop off Spider-Man's head, put on Peter Parker's head, and shove on those street clothes, or maybe even pop off Action Jackson's head so you can play with Spider-Man and Peter Parker. As an aside, I totally, as a kid, could not figure out how to remove a Mego figure head. So if I had received these sets, I would have been perplexed as to what to do with them. Like, I would go, where's their bodies? But that's just me. All of the clothing was designed by Madeline Abrams, mother of Marty Abrams, who at the time designed a great deal of the doll fashions. The textiles used to make the superhero outfits came through a family connection in Hong Kong that made athletic wear like swimsuits and jogging outfits. I love that polyester look. 4 characters were produced for the Secret Identities and were based on the 4 best-selling superhero characters, namely Superman's alter ego, Clark Kent. Clark not only came adorned in a blue and red suit to match his supersuit, but also came with a hat and glasses. These were not produced for any other Mego toy. The spectacles are extremely fragile, and I'll be honest, in making this video, I had a tough time putting them on and then putting the hat on. It just was frustrating. I was so worried I was going to break them, so you'll see some points in the video where he doesn't have his hat on. I'm just being very ginger with these. I'm not sure why you would need a spare Superman head for Clark, seeing as all you have to do is take Superman's clothes off and turn him into Clark, but Mego was probably just being consistent, 4 outfits, 4 heads. The second in the line is millionaire Bruce Wayne, who is also dressed in a similar gray suit with a smart blue tie, again, to give a nod to his bat duds. The head is the early Mego Batman head, the removable cowl version, if you will, that Mego would phase out in 1974 in favor of the more simplified head with the prepackaged cowl. The head gets around, though. It was used as Tex Willer, Jet Jungle, the Mystery Man, and even in Italian advertising as Action Jackson. I'm really not sure why. I want to point out these suits, both Clark's and Bruce's, seem to date back to another toy line that Mego was making called I Am a Dizzy Girl, which was a 6-inch line of, I think it's basically a ripoff of Dawn dolls. But you can see those little ties and jackets in there, and it's obvious that Mego just kind of blew them up to the 8-inch scale. Joining Bruce is his young ward, Dick Grayson, who's not wearing any red, yellow, or green like his heroic other life. No, Dick is going for full-on mod with a brown and tan number that super hasn't aged well. It's a far cry from the photo in the Ward's catalog that showed Dick wearing a black turtleneck and jeans from an Action Jackson set. The head is from the earliest version of Robin, the removable mask version, which was also phased out very quickly in lieu of the much easier painted mask, which was also really hard to lose. Rounding out the set is the only Marvel character in the line, and that would be Peter Parker. Our intrepid photographer is wearing his trademark blue and red, just like Spidey. The outfit's patterns were taken from the Action Jackson Secret Agent set, just different fabric. In fact, in the 1974 Ward's catalog, he is wearing the Secret Agent suit, complete with hat, walkie-talkie, and a knife in his boot, just like Peter Parker has. Peter's sneakers also come from Action Jackson sets like Baseball. The big tell is if they don't have holes in them, they're original, because the holes were used to sew them into the card back. Peter's head is from another DC hero, namely Shazam. Mego took the time to color his eyes blue, but not to make his hair brown. I've always found that a bit curious. It's such an easy swap. These figures are the first time the concept of making action figures of the alter egos was ever approached. Although, to be fair, Ideal Toys had done something similar with their Super Queens line in the 1960s, but no one had ever thought to make a Bruce Wayne action figure or, Clark Kent. All of the Secret Identity sets have some interesting and unique features that make them very hard to collect. First, and this is well known, all of the heads feature no copyright information on the back of the neck. It's not known why, but it is a commonality between all of the characters. There is also a distinct flesh tone in the Secret Identity figures, a sort of tan look about them that suggests that they were all done in a single batch, separate to the regular assortment. I should note over the years that I have run into Superman and Shazam heads that have no copyright info on their necks. These are often found on graying Type 2 heads. No, I'm afraid you do not have a Secret Identity figure. I believe this is caused by a degradation of the molds, and they're kind of like end-run pieces. All of the Secret Identity figures have to be on a Type 1 head with that different neck plug. Another common rumor that has plagued this line is that the Peter Parker figure came with a camera. This can be traced back to a book by Mego pioneer and super collector John Bonavita, Mego Action Figures, which is wonderful, and if you can find it, buy it. When John bought his set of Secret Identity figures, Peter Parker came with this camera, and this camera does get around. It's a Barbie knockoff, but it shows up in sets that are meant for Action Jackson, like this Adventurer outfit. At the time, there was no real way of verifying this. John was one of the few guys in the world that had a set. Heck, all you would have for reference is the Ward's catalog, and that's useless considering the outfits don't actually match. So he took a gamble and put it in the book and led us to conjecture whether it was real or not. I can remember in several articles he had just said, "I got it this way." It would take years of discovering untouched sets to discover that it wasn't true. It wasn't included. John made an incredible amount of discoveries and was right about so many things that this one is really easy for us to forgive. Unfortunately, I've spread some bad information from time to time through the museum. It happens. You take your best shots. Although I do kind of think the camera's really cool, and I should probably get one for my Peter Parker. The Secret Identities have seen their fair share of factory reproductions over the years. The first being Dr. Mego, who reproduced the heads and some of the parts and outfits to produce generic characters like Clark, Peter, Dick, and Bruce. These figures were clearly marked as reproduction on Type 2 bodies and provided collectors with a low-cost solution to these pricey and hard-to-find collectibles. Figures Toy Company would actually produce licensed versions of Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, and Dick Grayson in the 2010s to their superheroes line. Heck, they even made a Barry Allen. These figures retained the vintage look and charm, but again were very clearly marked as reproductions. The Secret Identity sets themselves were sold in a plain brown mailer box, and many people have remarked that they found them in the bins of Ward's clearance centers as children. So I'm not really sure how well this promotion went over. Many packaged sets have surfaced over the years, but they are still extremely pricey and challenging to collect. These are the trophies. These are the holy grails. The reason they're so rare is A, they were only released through Ward's, and B, only in 1974. So it really is something of a regional promotion. Mego never went back to the well with Secret Identities, so it is an extremely limited run for these toys. I can honestly remember in the late 1980s, I discovered the Secret Identities at a toy show. Not because I saw them, but because somebody came up to me knowing I collected Mego and said, "Did you hear what Mark Huckabone did?" Mark being a good friend of mine and a well-known Mego collector. And I said, "No." And he just paid $2,000 for a set of Secret Identity figures. And my second question was, what are Secret Identity figures? So I phoned him and I got the lowdown. And, of course, this was pre-internet. But, yeah, he had paid for what was, considered the only set of them at the time. And, of course, then thanks to magazines like Tomarts and of course, the internet, we all kind of learned what they were. But I can honestly remember thinking, I'm never going to get these. I don't know how I'm going to get my hands on these. I don't even live in the country where they were made. Fortunately for me, I found a set by the end of the 1990s. I had hooked up with a collector and I bought a huge computer paper box full of Mego parts. And I remember worrying that I'd overpaid and I'd lose my shirt. But going through that box, I started finding Clark's hat and then Clark's jacket and, Peter's pants. And it was one of the happiest moments of collecting I've ever have. And I this set is far from perfect. It's far from pure mint, but it feels like a gift from the universe. I wouldn't trade these guys for anything. I think they're the best. And they just remind me of, fulfilling that quest, focusing and trying to get something and then getting it. And they make me happy and I look at them every day. So that's our show for this week. Before we end, I just want to point out that I do have a store. If you do like this channel and want to support it, please check out the products in my store. I have things like Toy Ventures magazine. It's an old school deep dive toy magazine. And I also have 2 books available right now, Rack Toys and Knockoffs, which is my latest publication. That's it for this week. I would love to know your thoughts on the Secret Identities, especially if you're a vintage collector. Are these something you're hoping for to find at a flea market, or have you just given up hope? Let me know in the comments below. You can hit me up in our Facebook group, Megomania, and I'm sure there'll be a great conversation at the Mego Museum forums. Thank you, as always, for watching. If you're new to this, I hope you'll consider hitting like and subscribe. We do this every week. Until next time, be well, and as always, talk toys, not others. Cheers.